Oh, I was trying not to go too loud. I like testing.
And he was facing away from the microphone.
Hello, is that better? Turn that down a little. Testing. Works. Just happens. Campbell.
Jessica wasn't here, so
Oh, okay.
I can't be all responsible. Good save, Chairman.
Meeting without a gavel. County Board of Commissioners work session to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Here.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Here.
Commissioner Embry,
Here.
Here. Here. Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Up next would be approval of the agenda. We'll start out with general public comments. And then we have a report from Resolution Services Center Executive Director Lisa Bonney. We have no appointments to boards and commissions. Under committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Finance Administration Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
And Intergovernmental Affairs, we do have a report from Commissioner Marino on Intergovernmental Affairs. We have no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business. Under new business, a couple items there to consider, and then we'll have general public comment again, announcements. And then we'll consider entering into a closed session to consider material exempt from disclosure under state or federal statute. So with that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move Marino. Support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. We have an agenda. And next up would be general public comment. Is there anyone for general public comment? We have anyone online? Michelle? Okay. One online, no one for general public comment. The next up is a report, a presentation from Resolution Services Center Executive Director Lisa Bonney.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to come here tonight and share with you about the work of Resolution Services Center that we're providing to the citizens of Isabella County through our partnership with the courts. Resolution Services Center is a nonprofit organization. We serve Isabella and 5 other counties in mid-Michigan. We are designed as a regional community dispute resolution program, which is designated through the state courts administrator's office to assist citizens in peaceful resolution of their conflicts. Our work is to provide mediation services in all types of cases, which some of them are listed on the brochure you have with you tonight. But this can include things like somebody owes somebody money, there's property damage, who gets grandma's china, and in divorce and custody discussions. As you may know, mediation is facilitating a conversation between individuals, businesses, and groups by a neutral third party. The mediation can be done with or without a lawsuit being filed and doesn't require attorneys. For over 7 years, we've been partnering with the 76th District Court in mediation cases. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the work we're doing for the small claims and landlord-tenant cases that we do in partnership with Judge Jane's Court. Since COVID impacted in-person court hearings, Resolution Services Center has worked mediating small claims and landlord-tenants for your district court. This process includes receiving a docket from the court. Resolution Services then reaches out to parties in each case, typically multiple times, and confirms their attendance at this court-ordered mediation. We utilize Zoom for these cases, which makes attending more accessible for individuals. At the appointed time, each party in the case is able to share information about the lawsuit, and the mediator facilitates this conversation to help them come to some sort of an agreement. Mediators don't hand judgments down like judges do. Instead, we help the parties craft their own solution. Once an agreement is made between the parties, that is then returned to the court and signed off by the judge, thereby making it a legally binding document. Even when we don't get full agreements, typically individuals work out some of their concerns, which reduces the amount of issues which the judge or the magistrate needs to hear before they make their judgment. We often find that even if an agreement isn't achieved, the individuals have had a chance to make their case and reevaluate if there's any merit to any further litigation. Looking at 2022, which is the last year we have full data from, over 1,100 small claims and landlord tenants were sent to us from your court. 85% of those were either mediated to agreement or not returned back to the judge for judgments. Only 10% were mediated without agreement, where we could not reach an agreement between the parties, and then that was returned to the court to be heard. As an organization and personally, we truly value this partnership. 76 has been great to work with and have taken the time to share their processes and their forms with other courts in our region who are wanting to emulate their process. Feedback that we've received from the court and individuals who come to mediation has been positive, especially around the access to justice has increased, and we're seeing that many agreements to online mediation, as we saw before we went to online mediation. Currently, we do this at no cost to the county, the court, or the parties involved. Because our volume has increased so much in the last few years and is projected to continue, I'm here tonight to respectfully ask the county for consideration for funding in your 2023-24 fiscal year. As a nonprofit, our funding comes from a variety of resources, and we work hard to keep our services cost effective. Our financial request is for $15,000, which will ensure that we are able to continue this partnership at the current level of service. I recognize that this is a new request for you to consider, but one that's important to the thousands of people who come to us seeking resolution to their small claims or landlord-tenant issues. I would just like to say thank you again for your personal service to the citizens of Isabella County. Thank you for considering my request in this service. And if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
What was your source of funding? I know you're trying to get additional funding from the counties, but what is otherwise your source of funding?
So our funding is we do grants. We do get a small financial allocation from SCAO, State Court Administrator's Office. Usually that's based on some sort of formula for the whole state, but is based on case filing fees in each county. We also, in non-small claims and landlord tenant cases, are able to charge parties fees. So if someone's coming to do like a pre-divorce mediation, we can charge the parties then to come down, sit for the mediation. And then when they get that agreement, they can then take that to the court when they go file.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not pretty
See any,
straightforward.
but thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no appointments to boards and commissions. So up next, committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is consider ratifying and placing on file the May 2023 invoice list in the amount of $367,175.29. The May 2023 invoice list in the amount of $646,088.20. The May 2023 invoice list in the amount of $240,065.94 in the adjustment list dated June 2023. Moving to the first list, the May 12th list, went through that, and the items on here again are quite recognizable by the members of the board. They're paying off medical examiner contracts and other biweekly animal control contracts and those type of things. We do have a large payment going out to the Clare County Drain Commission of $206,000, and that first invoice list for the Little Tobacco county drain for 2022 assessment. I think I remember our drain commissioner indicated we have a small portion. It must be a pretty large project, but we pay for that portion of the Little Tobacco that's in our county. Any questions on that first list, the May 12th list? Moving on then to the May 19th list. I see we have a $145,000 payment to Michigan Municipal Risk Management for our liability and property insurance. We have a number of drain project payments to various banks, lending institutions. We have a 2% grant that pays for electrical upgrades at the MRF. This was done work by Block Electric Company. And we have 3 payments for childcare services to various vendors. Any questions on the May 19th list?
Also, I see the more drain payments on that list as well.
Pardon me? Or drain payments.
Payments for drains, yep. Big chunk of it.
Commissioner Engler?
Yeah, just a little bit on the Block Electric. That had to do with some OSHA upgrades that needed to be done at the MRF facility, so. That's kind of what that big thing was, so.
Okay. Moving on to the May 26th list. That was a short one. We do have payments to 44 North for our monthly prescription program. And then our typical contracts that we cover for hats and press and community services. We do have a payment for a new forklift for the MRF to Morrison Industrial Equipment of $44,824.78. And I did ask this at the committee meeting. We have a Michigan tribunal refund to Meyer. So apparently Meyer did appeal their property tax and got a $30,165 reduction in that. So I guess everybody's getting a reduction these days because of the economy or one thing or another. Any questions on the May 26th list or any of the contents on less than the $5,000 expenditures on any list? We'll move on to the adjustment list then. They're typically Gordon Food Service. We have both the Commission on Aging and the Sheriff's Department making early payments for discounts. And that was on the May 12th list, and on the May 19th list, a lot of, again, the same. We have some reductions to remove sales taxes. We have a invoice that I guess it's going to be resubmitted. Apparently it was needed to have some corrections from the sheriff's department. It was a payee to seller services. So we'll see that one in the future again. And then I see this payment to the state of Michigan for MIOSHA, 1,150. Is that another? Probably another fine or something.
It is, the at the MRF, as Commissioner Engler talked about, the upgrades that were done at the MRF. Our MRF was visited by MIOSHA recently, and inspected. We did have some citations. And this is the payment for the penalties. And we did, just as we did in Parks and Recreation, staff was able to respond to the citations and get approval on their response within 5 days of receiving MIOSHA's citations. And so we had a 50% penalty reduction. So this is actually half the cost of the penalty, but because Murph, Jake Orton and Charity Sweet were able to respond so swiftly, we were able to pay only half. So thank you for the.
It's
for the
good to have
question.
those watchdogs because, we do corrections. I mean, we don't see sometimes some of the things that we're doing that could cause serious injury and to an employee or somebody. So before I move on, I just want to say, MIOSHA visited a project that I had in Clinton County. We had a intermediate school district building a picnic pavilion, and they invited the press in to get some nice press. Well, they had the students not wearing hard hats, and they had an unapproved ladder. They were using a picnic table with a chair to stand and work on the trusses. So we didn't get fined for that, but we did get a lot of little bad publicity when it turned south. But so anyhow, that moves on from the May 19th now to the May 26th list. Again, there's discounts for early payments and payments to avoid late fees. Questions on the adjustment list? Then we'll move these to our meeting tonight.
Item 2, consider approving the memorandum of understanding between Johnson Controls Incorporated and Isabella County for a preliminary analysis of facilities to determine the viability of projects for a performance contract and authorize the board chair to sign the same. I have to say that first, I want to acknowledge County Administrator Frost for initiating these conversations with Johnson Controls. We had a very fruitful meeting at our Finance and Administration Committee meeting. I think we have an opportunity here to do four very valuable things for the county. One, I think this interaction, this agreement with Johnson Controls will ultimately become something that we do that's very environmentally friendly. Will hopefully be at no cost to the county and will allow the county to maximize leverage of our funding and also reduce our utility costs, hopefully in the long run. So again, thank you for that, Madam Administrator, and I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Mr. Ingraham.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Embry. I can't take any really any credit for initiating the conversation. I just knew it was one that needed to be moved up in our structure. So we kind of touched the surface of performance contracting at our goal setting session within a couple months ago. And so this is just kind of a furthering of that concept. We have the ability to work with Johnson Controls on a preliminary analysis to see if performance contracting makes sense for Isabella County. And as Commissioner Embry stated, I've been working with John Ingraham to figure that out. So John is here from Johnson Controls, and take it away, John, just as you did at Finance.
Sure. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Present the program known as performance contracting, which you're all familiar with. This will be the same presentation that was given to the Finance Administration Committee. So some of you may get deja vu, but I also want to give you opportunity to ask any questions and be a resource for you here today. So I'll get right into the presentation. We preliminarily looked at some of the utilities within the county that are line items in the budget. There's around $600,000 a year being spent, gas and electric only. Also,
Pull that mic.
do I need
No,
more?
pull that
Oh, I
mic.
need to
Yeah,
go.
either pull
Yeah,
that
sorry.
microphone up or you almost gotta, yeah,
Okay.
you gotta get right in there,
All right, so,
unfortunately.
yeah.
There you go.
Talk to our group quietly. I can feel like I'm shouting at people, but yeah, I'll use the microphone. This very preliminary overlook doesn't include water as well. So one of the things we like to do within the preliminary review is get all the utility bills, which we've been in the process of collecting, and actually look at, okay, what can be saved? Because you can't save everything in a utility bill. You know, you can only save the gallons of water used or the kilowatt hours of energy, or the, cubic feet of gas. You can't, avoid certain charges that are fixed. So we really want to get drilled down to what are the units of energy that you're using, because we could save those and the associated costs. So as an example, if the county is spending $600,000 a year in utilities and at a 25% efficiency increase, which is typical for these types of projects, anywhere from 20 to 35%, you'll see examples of other communities that have saved at least that much. Over 20 years, that savings would be about 3 million. So there'd be immediate upgrades totaling 3 million with no additional net costs. Now that looking at some of the requirements and needs within communities, there's almost always more needs than there is money. So we would use this money as well as any other potential operational savings or grants or ARPA or Inflation Reduction Act funding, which there's some slides on some potential opportunities for funding through the Inflation Reduction Act to be able to address some of the deferred maintenance and items that have been needed for several years to, in some cases, decades across communities, in order to get caught back up to where you should be. So this is basically a snapshot of the potential program in words. This is it in graphs. I know people learn differently, so I like to have it in a couple of different ways. So this is it. Hey, we have a budget line item right now of $600,000 every year that's going to DTE consumers. If we could break off $150,000 a year of that and have that be the payment for that equipment over time, we're not spending any more money than we would if we would just continue doing nothing over the next 20 years, but you'll have equipment to show for it. So instead of continuing to pay DTE consumers, have nothing to show for it, you divert some of that money to new equipment and not have to use taxpayer funds for that. This is shown in a table format. So there's savings. We do guarantee savings. So part of analysis is to look at everything that you have going on and where utilities are. And then there's calculations that go into it and say, okay, based on this efficiency of this HVAC equipment or this lighting and these calculations, after the fact, we come back after installation and we'll measure it and verify. And that if we say you'll save $150,000 a year and that's guaranteed. If you save only 130, then you'll get a check every year for $20,000. So you could have a high level of certainty that you say, okay, we're going to need to pay $150,000 a year for this. Where's this money going to come from? Well, here's where it's going to come from, these savings. And if we don't get it, then, the rest of it's going to come from Johnson Controls, who's guaranteeing that amount. So it significantly reduces the risk that you're going to be in a position where you have some payment that you can't afford because those savings would be guaranteed. So the Inflation Reduction Act, this pertains primarily to solar. So anything that doesn't generate carbon. So there's a base 6% rate. Typically in the past, non-tax-paying entities like Isabella County were excluded from programs like this. But the new program is a direct credit from the U.S. Treasury. So it is a investment tax credit. So it's basically a check cut to you for a percentage of the money spent on solar installations. So you get 6%. If you do meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, that you would get another 24%, which would be added to that at 30%. And if you could meet the domestic content hurdles, that is 40%, another 10%. And then so 10% for being in an energy community, which is still being defined by the US Treasury to see if you could fall within that. And then there's another 20% available for what's known as an environmental justice bonus, which pertains to low income areas. So we're thinking you'd most likely get at least 30%, potentially 40, 50% of any solar installation paid for. So that makes the installation of solar not just a green carbon energy efficiency, environmentally friendly initiative. It actually could save pretty significant money. And part of including that in a program like this is to say, okay, we have needs like, for example, the administration building has a lot of really old equipment and is controlled through pneumatic devices, and it's really hard to service and get parts for and have people have expertise. They need to be converted to digital controls, just as a matter of being able to continue to operate those buildings. You know, the energy savings from that may not completely pay for all that, but the energy savings from, you know, lighting or solar could help go towards that. So when you look at a mix of all the potential facility improvement measures that could be done within all the buildings and how they interact with each other, you could create a program that says, okay, this is going to save us money and it's going to accomplish all these needs that we have that we would otherwise had to have had taxpayers pay for. This slide is just to show, hey, if you have you know, 100 projects running at once, as something like this might do, you know, electrical controls, lighting, and you treat them all as individual projects, that is a very high burden for the county. There's also a loss of economies of scale associated with that. You know, I've been at facilities where they'll be decide to go in and do a large upgrade. Did I lose my screen? I shrunk it. Yeah, it looks normal on my screen. Are you guys seeing it on your screens, Little?
Yep. She got it back up.
I was gonna say, I've seen other communities decide they're gonna do large scale projects and break it up into lots of pieces and then be in a building where they have 4 different electrical contractors doing HVAC and controls and then lighting. And then you have, you know, occasionally job site trailers. And then it's, you know, there's economies of scale of looking at doing it as one project, as well as looking at the interaction of different components between each other. For example, you know, occupancy sensors could dial back, you know, turn the lights off when people aren't in there and also dial back temperatures. The building systems used to all be independent of each other, and now they kind of all work together. You know, an example would be, you know, lights create heat. And if you go in LED, you have less heat. That affects the, you know, the heat calculations and the building loading. So you have to look at all that. So it's not just saving energy, it's also the environmental benefits. And the example that I gave is, you know, if you said that you save 200 tons of carbon, that doesn't mean a lot to most people. It doesn't to me. I've never seen a ton of carbon. I don't know what that looks like. But when you put that in equivalencies of, hey, you know, this program for Isabella County is equivalent of taking 8,000 vehicles off the road or planting 500,000 trees, or, you know, however it works out to be, then people can understand, you know, the environmental impact of a program like this. One of the things that we do is, you know, thermal imaging identification of building envelopes. So that's one of the potential facility improvement measures, you know, in addition to looking at mechanical controls and lighting and solar electrical generation is insulation. And it's pretty evident when you have, you know, an opening in your building, you're losing energy. But what we could do is quantify that and put that in the calculation and say, okay, for every linear foot of, you know, door stripping that you're missing, it's equating this many dollars, and then over the years it equals this. So by you know, caulking miles worth of caulking, and it's $20,000, you might say $40,000. So we could help with that payback analysis. and that's what we do for every facility improvement measure. So this is what it costs, this is what it's saving. You know, present a mix of facility improvement measures to you to build up a program based on dozens or hundreds of potential measures. Data logging. So one of the things we'll be doing upon signature of the MOU is placing devices that measure the light and motion. So what the device will do is determine when the lights are on and if anybody's there to calculate potential savings. So there'll be a sample throughout most of the facilities to say, okay, you know, we have X hours of occupancy and Y hours of lights being on, and that differential is a potential savings. Also on the mechanical side, we'll look at temperature logging. So, there's a focus on energy savings, obviously. Primarily, the goals are safety first and then comfort. You could save a lot of energy turning all the lights off, but how productive are people going to be? So there's a lot of studies that show that people are more productive when they have proper lighting levels, proper air conditioning, proper temperature and humidity. So we'll look at increasing the comfort of the occupants. That's the workers and the visitors and constituents of the county that come to visit as well. Along that same line is fresh air. A lot of older buildings are out of code with regards to bringing in outside air. And that got extra scrutiny with COVID and the pandemic. And it's not just COVID, you're breathing CO2, volatile organic compounds come off of installed components. There's cold and there's flu. So if you could bring fresh air and reduce the viral loading and the carbon loading within a facility, everybody feels a lot healthier. You get less headaches, there's less time off. So that's one of the kind of benefits that aren't going to show up in a budget analysis. Solar electrical generation. People ask how we guarantee solar electrical generation when you can't guarantee how much sun you're going to have, or clouds or the weather. And over the course of a day or week or so, you really can't. But over the course of a year and with decades worth of data that we have, we could very confidently say the amount of sun we're going to get. And then we could design the systems that we could guarantee, okay, this is how much electricity you're going to have generated and equate that to dollars. The solar electrical generation, the easiest way to do that is with a roof. And you have at the administration building, a large flat roof with a new roof. Several considerations with solar are, the age of the roof. You don't want to put solar panels on a roof that you're going to have to take all the panels back down and replace the roof and then put the panels back up. So really a new roof works perfect. You want a roof where the life of that roof is going to exceed the life of the equipment. Or if the roof's really old, you could replace the roof and put this on. And alternatively, you could look at ground mount systems or parking canopies with solar on them, like Michigan State has and like Eaton County has now. And I have some photos of that as well. So this is Eaton County. We did a performance contract for Eaton County. That contract was signed in April of 2022, and it's already up and running. Does my mouse show up there? Okay, so over here is an administration building. This got a new roof and solar panels. There's a jail over here, which had a roof about 10 years old. So we didn't want to put in a bunch of solar panels and then have to take them down and then put them back up. That hurts the payback on that, because there's a cost associated with that for that eventual roof replacement. So with the carport structure, you have the added benefit of people being able to park under there and have snow cleared. And we also put two double-headed electric vehicle charging stations there. So that was huge for employee retention. And the Eaton County prosecutor was really big on getting that covered parking, because he's struggling to get people to want to be attorneys anymore, and they can work from home and stay cozy. So being able to say, hey, in the winter, you could park in one of these things and I have to clear snow off is huge for those employees. This is not Eaton County, but it's a similar design that just kind of shows what it looks like from underneath there. So this is a screenshot. We'll see if this works. I don't know. This is a public dashboard that was set up for the Eaton County solar generation. They actually have it at 4 sites. There were only 2 shown previously. This is it at a health center where they have covered parking. This is at the jail, the courthouse, and then they have a youth center here. And then up here is everything. So over on this right side here, it shows some of the equivalencies just from the solar electrical generation. And then you could sort it by, the last 3 days, a month, year, lifetime, and see how much energy is generated today and how much power is generated lifetime. So that's a really cool tool that you could use to kind of promote what it is that you're doing for the community and show them that you're being good stewards of not just their money, but the environment. Funding options, existing capital funds, bonds, tax exempt lease purchases. So what's the best way to pay for this? We say savings pays for it, but in some capacity, you'll have to borrow the money and pay the money back with the savings is the way that works. So we'll work with you to help you find the cheapest cost of money as you could get. So if you say, okay, we're doing a $5 million project, you essentially borrow $5 million and then there's a payment. And then, maybe that's, or if it's $5 million, maybe the payment's 150,000 a year to use the previous example. And it's okay, where's 150,000 coming from? All right, we got 125,000 from energy savings, 20,000 from operational savings. If you did apply ARPA money, then you don't have to borrow that and you would apply, that would just avoid that interest rate, interest cost. And then you could get more work done with the money instead of using the ARPA dollars. And that's exactly what Eaton County did as well. I think there's a page on that. So I got 2 examples of the program. This one is City of Marquette. So that was a $27 million project paid for completely through savings and additional revenue that they had with a water meter project with $42 million in benefits over the term. We touched just about every aspect of the city from, new energy management systems, HVAC. We even put cogen on the wastewater treatment plant that took some of the methane that was coming off of that and generated heat and electricity with that covered up about 99% of all their electrical use there. And then Eaton County, this is their press release on the right, which is available online. So I kind of put some highlights on the left here. It was a 35% reduction in costs and the related environmental impact. No additional taxpayer costs, included a 1 megawatt of solar electrical generation, and it replaced aged HVAC equipment. One of the things we did there in the example that I would use for Isabella County is we want to make the best use of your already installed assets. So it's not come in, rip everything out. It's use everything that could potentially be reused. And an example at Eaton County is, 2 chillers that we were able to, if you replace them both, could save $15,000 a year. But one chiller was 20 years old, end of life, needed to be replaced. The other is only 10 years old. Is it worth, ripping out a $150,000, $200,000 chiller to save, $15,000, or just wait 10 more years and get that? So that's part of the analysis that we look at and is say, okay, doesn't it make sense to remove some equipment that you already have installed just to get that energy savings if it's not going to make financial sense? So we've done over 300 performance contracts. This is just some of them that we've done in Michigan. Read all them off to you, but I leave a copy of the program with you. Suffice to say, we have worked with a lot of communities and about a dozen. We've been doing this for 35 years now, and we've worked with at least a dozen counties and have done performance contracts for them. Eaton County most recently. As far as performance contracting in Michigan, there's about 12 active companies that do this. They're all certified through NAESCO, and every one of them has done projects in Michigan and has good customers. I'm a big proponent of performance contracting in general. So any one of these companies would you're better off going with than doing nothing. But there's a reason that we do almost half of all of the projects in Michigan. We're very good at it. So this is one of the final slides. We hit on cost savings, and that's primarily what most communities want to focus with. Occasionally people will say, hey, we don't care what it costs, we want to be net zero carbon. But we usually take an eye on, hey, what's going to make the most sense financially, and look at the 20-year life of the equipment and the operational cost of the equipment, not, what's the cheapest thing to install right now. It's okay. That's definitely a factor in it. Is you want to get the lowest cost, initial cost, but then, what is it going to cost me in the long run? It's kind of like looking at, two different cars, and one gets 20 miles a gallon and one gets 25 miles a gallon. If you can drive the thing for 5 years, the one that gets 25 miles a gallon, it's going to probably be less money in the long term if they're equal price. So that factors into it. Improved comfort, we talked about a little bit, aesthetically pleasing. You could get, some upgrades that maybe aren't cost savings. But, we've done projects at, schools where we replace the football fields, with some of the money that savings, excess savings that were generated. Reduced emissions, increased safety with proper lighting levels, and increased productivity. And then the last one is increased infrastructure, and I got my bar over that. Reliability. And the last one is budget integrity. So a lot of times when you have this many buildings and things breaking down, the budget swings considerably from year to year. That, okay, this piece of equipment broke down and we need 100,000 for this. This is 50,000 a year. By replacing all of the old aging equipment, you could say, okay, we have a set payment now per year. So this is usually appreciated by people that are in charge of setting budgets and maintaining facilities, because they don't have, all of a sudden we don't have heat in this building and we got to send people home, or we got to pay, fees to have people come in the middle of the night and replace this. So being able to say, hey, we have a set payment, we have all of our equipment that's, near past end of its life has been replaced. We're set up, financially and operationally for the next, 10, 20 years. That's a good position to be in. So that's the last slide I had. I did want to talk a minute about the process and where we're at and what you would expect for the next steps. I assume that would probably be the next question. So, so we're at here is an MOU with the memorandum of understanding. I think it's in your packets. It basically says that you don't owe Johnson Controls any money, and we'll just do a benchmark of your buildings and walk the facilities and do an analysis of your utilities. So you could say, hey, your admin building, you're spending this many dollars per square foot, where we would expect a energy efficiency building would be this many dollars per square foot. This is the potential savings, and look at that over time to say this is what the potential savings might be. We would also catalog some of the equipment and the ages and get an idea of the items that would lead to those potential savings. It's easy enough to say, oh, we save 20%. Well, how? Okay, the controls will save this much, energy and operational, the lighting will save this much. In the prelim, we won't know exactly what those things are or save, but we'll have identified them as items for investigation. So that's why prelim is very high level, and that's how we could offer it at no cost. So it's really the first step in the entire program. So I don't want you to think you'll get a facility condition assessment or something that's really of high value. Its value is in justifying going to the next step where you do detailed development of all those facility improvement measures. Also, you could get motion sensors that detects shut off if they don't see any motion. So I'm a big so like shut off on them because they're not dancing. So where we're at right now is the MOU, and then our timeline is, we took a little bit of leap of faith that you would approve it, and we've had several people, over a dozen people have touched this and then entered utility bills and evaluated and walked some facilities just so that we and have a head start on what you're gonna have going on. So what we would like with the signature of the MAU is to be back in 2 years and 2 weeks. Present to you our preliminary findings that would say, hey, here's a list of the facility improvement measures that could potentially get the savings that we would like to investigate in a project development agreement. So the next phase would be to back in a week to the Finance and Administration Committee and in 2 weeks to the full board with a preliminary report and a project development agreement that says, here's everything that we would like to develop that we think we could save you money on. And then upon signature of the project development agreement, we would fully develop those costs, savings, any kind of benefits, build up the project that we would present to you in late August for signature in September. Or whatever works around your schedule. So that's how fast we could go. If you say, hey, we want to spend more time looking at it, that's fine too. But for now, that's the plan. Okay. So I'll turn it over to questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Ingraham?
I have, and not a question so much as a comment. I remember years ago, county was contemplating getting an energy ed. And we were in competition with Union Township and the city to get a grant to cover the cost. So we never, so I'm just thinking of all the money wasted since that. I mean, so, and I'm also glad that revenue preliminary assessment, and it's going to be concrete where we can, how we can save money. I think this is a really good
The very good points, Commissioner Moreno, and I've been to several communities that are struggling where they've paid for several energy studies and then they say, now what? They've got no plan to implement it. So this is more than an energy study. And, you know, we've seen other situations where, you know, they'll say it should cost this. Well, okay, find someone that'll do it for that. And they can't, you know, because it's engineers that don't necessarily understand the construction side. So when we're in development, it's project managers and contractors and engineers working together to develop this stuff. So they understand what's going to go into it. So when we say, okay, here's this, I don't want to say study, but here's this report of what you could do, what it's going to cost and what it's going to save. It's a contract that says it's going to be done for that amount of money. And it's not just a guarantee on the savings, it's a guarantee on the costs, you know, so you're not in a situation where you say, okay, this thing's going to cost X dollars. Then you go out and you design it, you get the funding, everything in place, and you go back to build it. And they say, oh, you know, it's going to cost $8 million more than we thought it was. And then you're starting back at square one. And, you know, this is in September, we'll have a project with the funding in place. So we'll work with you on that, with the guarantees in place and the savings and a fixed cost. And upon signature of that, we start, you know, finalizing the engineering, ordering equipment and starting installation, you know, within weeks.
Exactly. Commissioners,
Just a comment, but first of all, the timeline's pretty aggressive, but that's all right.
like that.
Like you say, it's an energy audit with experts from Johnson Controls can come in and tell us how to save energy, but then also a way to implement those savings. Like you talked about doing a study and then, you know, entities that do a study and then just sit on that study and not implement it. This is a good way to, you know, improve our energy systems, our indoor air quality, all of it, have it all audited and do it soon by leveraging the potential savings and then utilizing those tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act, which previously were not available to government entities. So to me, it sounds like a win for the county.
Yeah. Commissioners, any other questions?
I did want to point out the Inflation Reduction Act and the ARPA funding that you have. You know, there is a lot of talk in Washington about clawing back some of that. And they've also set limits on the IRA money that once it's spent, it's no longer available. So I'm recommending to anybody that's interested in leveraging that to get in line first, because once that money's committed, they won't take it back from you.
This is a good opportunity to make some improvements for the county and, you know, we're very tight on the budget, but this is a solution to make some of those improvements. At the committee, I had mentioned that when I was still employed by Clinton County, I was involved with energy improvement projects over there, and it was just fantastic. Even though that building was much younger than the building we currently have, it had old boilers, huge boilers, and they were replaced by small electronic boilers. And we went to LED lighting. We had separation of HVAC systems for the 911 central dispatch because it was in the same building. And here we had a 5-story building that had to heat and cool 24 hours, even though the building didn't have to, the central dispatch had to function 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but the rest of the building didn't. But I'm sure that county experienced significant savings, and this is an opportunity for us. So I appreciate the chance to do this.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioners, any other questions? We will move this item to tonight's regular business board meeting. Thank you, Mr. Ingraham. Appreciate it very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This completes the work of the Finance and Administration Committee meeting for this evening.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Up next is criminal justice and county affairs.
Chairperson Hope, our first item, consider approving the volunteer agreement between Steve Lake and Isabella County on behalf of Isabella County Public Defender's Office and authorize board chair. We have, yep, we do. Thomas Hausman here to give us an overview. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, commissioners. It's this kind of exciting because it's, we've been an office since the fall of 2019 and dating back to that original compliance plan, we had always envisioned having interns in our office. And we're finally to that point that I feel comfortable that we're comfortable in our own processes as an office. And we're to that point where we're fully staffed with our employees. And I think it's a good opportunity to finally move forward with that kind of last puzzle piece as a department to start being able to have interns and volunteers to be able to help us out in those processes. And, I'm a product of doing an internship with a prosecutor's office in college. And then I went back to that same prosecutor's office in law school, and then eventually worked there as a prosecutor. So I'm very much in favor of being able to give back and do volunteer agreements and internships. And I'm excited to kind of move forward with that, what I view as that last puzzle piece for our department. Stevie goes to Ferris State University. This isn't a paid internship or anything like that. It's not for credit through the university. She's just wanting to do some volunteer work and is possibly considering going to law school. So we'd like to kind of have her, follow some of the attorneys around and see what we do on a daily basis and get that background. And, potentially one day she could be in the same position as me and come back and be at the public defender's office. Who knows? So we're looking forward to have her help us out this summer.
All right, are there any questions for Thomas Hausman? I would like to let everyone know, they did have the county lawyer look over the agreement or write the agreement, so that's been approved there. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll move this on to tonight's regular session. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have consider approving the agreement between Isabella County by and through Isabella County Sheriff Office and Wise Township for the dedicated public safety service and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Probably should have did the item 3 first because this is a new contract with Wise contract for additional services. It was kind of looked at with the Lake Isabella contract that we've always done, but this is a brand new contract. Sheriff will go into it, but cost the county nothing and it's a volunteer for your deputies. So Sheriff?
I apologize. I wasn't paying attention. You said Weiss Township was first?
Yes, yes. I said we should have did it the other way around because we were going to probably refer to Lake Isabella's agreement that we've had for years. So
I was contacted by township and Weiss Township folks and they have some funds generated by some particular businesses in their area that require only specific things to use their funds for. Their funds continue to grow, so they reached out and wanted to do some public safety, law enforcement hours in their township, a little extra patrol. It's not uncommon that sheriff's offices contract with townships. Most of the sheriff's offices around us, you'll find that they have contracts with townships and so forth for extra patrol. Currently, we're back in that whole reduced workforce. We're down about 10 between corrections and road right now, again, just within the last 60 days. So the only way really to do this, we couldn't take someone from the road to put them there, is to do similar to what we do in Lake Isabella for the village there. Basically, in the pay period, it's a couple of shifts, 6 to 7 hours. We rotate them days, hours, nights, whatever, give everybody the opportunity. It's free sign up basically. So if a deputy is available, wants to go and work that overtime for the township, they sign up and do that. If we don't have anybody that week, we're in training, we're just short, or just nobody wants to do it. There's no harm, no foul. We just don't put the hours in for that week. If there is something major that steps off, they will leave the townships and help and cover those things, but we don't bill for those hours. It's completely reimbursed, whatever hours we work. That's what gets billed. Plus some time for gas and fuel and so forth. So it's no cost out of pocket for the county. It does provide a little extra coverage up in that corner, which, I hate to say it, eventually we don't get up in those corners very often just because we're so busy in the, other areas. So it's a win-win for, I think, everybody and doesn't cost the county anything. So, and I did not have the attorney look this over, but this is the exact same verbiage of the village of Lake Isabella, which they did look over. I just changed it from Wise to her village Lake Isabella to Wise. So, and they've already signed off on it.
okay, is there any questions for the sheriff? Seeing none, we'll go right into the Lake Isabella agreement. Consider approving the agreement between Isabella County by and through Isabella County Sheriff Office in the village of Lake Isabella, effective June 1st, 2023 until September 6th, 2023 for Marine Patrol Services and authorize board chair to sign the same. This is a contract we've seen before. It's seemed to have worked well. The only thing that's different is the dates and the wage scale.
Not much more to say. It's the same one we use every year. It's a private lake. They want a few hours of Marine Patrol on their 4th of July event and then a few before and a few after. And it's always worked out pretty well. So.
Yes, Jerry.
Nothing about the agreement, but I was looking at the staff report. In the staff report, you in introduction, you referred to Lake Isabella as a private lake. Just to say, it's a public lake with limited public access. You can float.
Quick access. Yeah.
And I did check the contract to see if it referred to a private lake and that probably would have had to have been taken out, but I know they'd like to have it as a private
I
lake.
think there's a debate whether that is a private lake or not. So I think there's two different versions of that conversation, but yeah. If you can own the water that flows through it or not. So, yeah.
We don't need to enter that debate at this time, Sheriff.
We don't.
Yes, so am I. Is there any more questions for the sheriff on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll move this forward to the business session.
All right, our last item, business, consider converting one of the Isabella County Prosecuting Attorney's Office legal secretary positions currently at a non-union employee wage scale pay grade 8 to family support coordinator position at a non-union employee wage scale pay grade 9 effective immediately. Welcome.
I am you can't hear me?
You gotta pull it right up there.
You're a rock star. Okay. I am the administrative manager for the prosecutor's office. Mr. Barbary couldn't be here this evening. So he asked me to sit in, and I've been at the meeting and criminal justice meetings in the past. So my name is Dorothy Marshall. So yes, we are asking to reclassify one of our 4 legal secretary positions that handles child support establishment and other probate items that the other legal secretaries don't handle. And so we're looking to reclassify that to a family support coordinator, new title, and to raise that up a level of pay. We do have additional duties and responsibilities, training that goes through with that position. And we have found it difficult to keep somebody in that position. So we are just requesting that that position could be created that way. And do you have any questions?
I will say at committee, I requested that a job description be put together before it came to the full board, and that is included in your packet. I think as far as the scoring or the pay scale, if you will, for this new position, I think they're right in line. We do have a friend of the court caseworker, if you will, over at trial court, which is a grade ahead of this, or I should say a higher, just one higher grade than this. But this position is not as involved, I would say, as the FOC caseworkers. So I do think they've right sized it at a grade 9, and it does do more duties than the legal secretary. And apparently there's a new maybe certification requirement for the DNA testing, the collection.
Right, they
specimens
go
and stuff,
through
so.
different training for that, as well as the training to use the software for child support, MICES. There is a 3 to 4 day pretty in-depth training with that. It is a complicated system. And so yeah, that is something that additionally can it brings some additional duties and responsibilities for sure. So
Yeah, thank you for writing that job classification and quickly and we could have it in our packet and see all those outlines. Are there any further questions about the position? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to the work session tonight.
thank
Thanks, Dorothy.
And Chairperson, hope that ends the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs.
Thank you, commissioners. And that brings us to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving the sanitary sewer easement agreement between Isabella County and Nottawa Township for the installation of sewer mains and grinder stations at the Coldwater Lake Family Park, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
So it's me. So Miranda couldn't be here tonight.
Oh, okay.
So she asked if I would relay some things to the board. She's written this out fantastically. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read it. Okay. The sanitary sewer easement agreement is needed to grant access for Nottawa Township and their contractors and engineers to be able to access the property to install sewer mains and grinder stations. This project will bring a public sewer connection to Coldwater Lake Family Park. Future plans will then be to construct sewer lines to certain campsites, giving them full hookup with water, electric, and sewer. The construction costs for installing the sewer mains and grinding stations are now estimated at $333,000 to $444,000 based on the existing 103 campsites. This project was approved in the park's capital funds budget for fiscal 23. However, this project will not take place until 2024 construction wise. The Parks Department was approved for, if you recall, $250,000 in ARPA funds last year through the ARPA work group and the Board of Commissioners to use towards the project. And that was the estimated cost of the project at the time, and now they're tightening down on that. Interim Director Miranda Walker requested additional funds from the county's ARPA work group committee last week. And $100,000 additional ARPA funds were voted out of that work group to come to the board for consideration and approval. So once the public sewer installation is complete, the Parks Department will then need to hire a contractor to connect the park to this public connection and properly dispose of their septic tanks, actually. So, any questions? In that regard, she did a great job to spell it out. I mean, I think everybody thought this was going right up to the, the full hookup stage and that's a phase 2, right? Right now is just bringing that sewer connection to the park. Mhm.
Gotcha.
And the cost has increased a little bit, but that ARPA work group, they went over the minimum, so a total of 350,000, but felt that there should be some efforts on the Parks Department to find other funding sources for the project.
Right, I remember at the committee, she said she was gonna be going to that work group, ARPA work group, right?
Yes, she did. She did. Yes, that's right. That's
Yeah, I
right.
think when we first started to do this whole project started, I think we were actually estimating 300. As far as overage, and that was probably a year, 2 years ago or something, we we're starting to look at it, so we were. Trying to be optimistic on there, but apparently we fell a little bit short, so.
Going down.
No,
Right.
you're not.
Mhm.
So there was reference made to grinder stations, plural. Is that grinder, whatever the facility is, just gonna serve the park septic system before it puts it in? It's not gonna be part of a larger system that goes down the road?
Correct. That is my understanding. Yes. Yes.
Well, the reason I bring it up is, when you apply for acquisition grants or development grants, you're not allowed to convert portions of the property for other use by DNR rules. So if it was going to be used for some larger system, probably the DNR would have to be consulted to make sure that they would approve that there wasn't a transfer of value of that property.
Mhm. Mhm. Valid point.
Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, that will be on this evening's agenda.
Okay, second item, consider approving the budget amendment 2023-11 in the amount of $11,741 to cover the cost and purchase of a new vehicle through MI Deal Incorporated for the Isabel County Commission on Aging and authorize the board chair to sign the same. We have Jennifer Crawford.
Yeah, so this is my first time trying to purchase a vehicle.
How's
since
it
I've been
going?
here. And it's not an easy one. So by the time we're going through my deal and to find a dealership that will contact you back is one thing in itself. That's in the program. We finally got someone to get in touch with me. We identified a vehicle, still was about 5,000 more than I'd budgeted last year based on what was in my deal. So we were like, all right, let's go forward with that one. And the next day it was sold. So then the dealer keeps looking for vehicles. He's finally found one and he's tagged it. So he tells me, and it's this vehicle right here. So I'm hoping that if approved, it's still there when I call him back again. So this vehicle, my original budget amount was $26,250. The new vehicle price is $37,991. So there's that difference of $11,741 that I'm requesting that we move through the budget amendment from our unreserved fund balance into that account to cover the cost of the vehicle. Right now, here at Commission on Aging, we have one vehicle for all of our staff. It is used all the time. We have a sign out board for it, and it's always gone. It seems like lots of home visits take place throughout all of our programs. And in the winter, that was tough. Like some staff that had vehicles with all-wheel drive, especially a lot of the rural areas, that was a necessity to get to some of the folks. And so when doing the budget last summer, I wanted to make sure we put a vehicle in with all-wheel drive. And then this one also has a larger capacity than the one we have now. So if they need to take a wheelchair or we need to call some of our bulk meal containers out to the sites, which we often do, if one of our drivers isn't able, now we will have the space in this vehicle to be able to do that. So hopefully if approved, we can contact them and get this one coming.
So Are you saying that the same vehicle went up like $12,000 in 1 year, or did you get a improved vehicle?
What he was able to find is, I think this one is maybe an LS or an LT, so it's a little bit different. Has a little more premier than the normal one that we were looking for off the My Deal last year. But he's not able to locate one that's more of a plain Jane. It's still cloth seats but I think probably just has more
Don't-
bells and whistles than what we had originally planned for.
What was the original one 4-wheel drive? Maybe is that the difference? Okay.
Yep, It was.
So my wife just asked me or told me we need to replace our car, and I use that as an example as the
Right.
reason we don't want to replace it, but don't talk to her, please, at church.
I think this is probably still a good deal compared to what we would get at a dealership on our own, but yeah, it would be a great asset.
Mr. Engler.
Yeah, this is not a question, it's a comment, but trying to get a work farm truck with no carpet and 2 doors with just a basic, you have to special order it. Because of all the options, you cannot find a plain Jane anymore. That's special order, so you might and sometimes you have to wait a year, so yeah. So
In this whole process.
Learned a lot and quite a lot of processes in the last couple of years, I think. Yes.
Any other question?
I'd like to tell you something I've learned in the process too. In looking at the procurement policy, well, one thing we knew, and I just want everybody listening to understand, when you procure something through My Deal, that satisfies our procurement policy. There's no reason to go further. So that's one important thing to mention. But the other reason is normally a budget amendment like this, when it's a net zero, the county administrator controller can handle that. You've given me the authority to do budget amendments that net zero up to $25,000 for equipment, up to $50,000 for non-equipment. But specifically, it says in our purchasing policy that the capital expense is approved and doesn't need to come back to the board if the amount was approved in the budget or by a budget amendment approved by the board. So that extra step is in our policy. You approve capital projects in the budget. Please know if more money is needed, that should come back to the board, and that's why we're here. So sorry for the extra step, Jen, but thanks for the education on this.
The comment too, but even with that big increase from last year to this year, that vehicle is still about $3,200 under MSRP for what we're getting it for. So
Yes.
still a good
Yeah,
deal.
Still a good deal.
Yep.
I think it's really important too, just the aspect of these people that are out on the roads, and the all-wheel drive is very important. Winter months and these things are essential things to get to where they're going. And also with the extra capacity really helps out in getting the equipment and the meals. Everything. Any other questions? If not, we'll move that forward to tonight's regular session. That completes the work of the Human Resources and Public Works.
Thank you, gentlemen. Up next, Intergovernmental Affairs, Commissioner Marino.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The intergovernmental liaison meeting was May 24th, 2023. Included myself, Mayor of Mount Pleasant, Amy Perschbacher, Union Township Supervisor Brian Melke, Public Relations Manager for the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, Eric Rodriguez, Union Township Manager Mark Burr, Mount Pleasant City Manager Aaron DeSense, and Union Township Trustee Brian Smith. Started off with the update of city business. And Aaron, the manager, told us that the city got a $26 million grant to use on wastewater. And there was a small matching that they had to put up to upgrade the lift stations, pump stations, and resulting in more energy efficiencies. Also, there will be a project to replace the city side of the water system to replace the end cycle in the system. And there will be a 50% forgiveness of the loan in this project. The result will be only pump the water once. Right now, there's 2 ways that the water has to be pumped. And they're going to change that so it's more efficient. Okay. There will also be an upgrade on the city town center with the city applying for $1 million grant. It will include elimination of Mosier Street from the roundabout to Broadway, where it's curved there, right in front of where the seniors live. And also there'll be 3 new car chargers for electric cars, more parking in lot 3, a public restroom, which everybody's happy about, and more mobility and all access to facilities. The city, another topic, the city may bring back Mardi Gras. Aaron also said the city is looking at repurposing some large buildings downtown. Another subject was rebate in lieu of taxes funds. There are 2 response projects. One's on Mission, which would focus on low-income housing. And on Broomfield, one would focus on low-income housing for seniors. Another change for the city, you probably heard of Thrilling Thursdays. It's now going to be changed to Wednesdays, Thrilling Wednesdays. For special events, and the schedule is on the city's website. There will also be an upgrade in soccer courts at Horizon Park, and there will also be a community garden offering with plots for rent with 15 garden beds available. You can check online for more information on that. They're 4x8 plots. Also, ball court coming as well. He mentioned a sidewalk on Birch Street and street upgrade on Greenfield. Coming from the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe, Eric let us know that the tribal college will relocate to the location on Pickard that once housed Mid-Michigan Community College, that big Energy One building there on Pickard. And also there will be a groundbreaking ceremony at Zebuine Center, May 31st, which already happened. There was a groundbreaking ceremony. You mentioned for a new housing project that's going to be between the Zebuine Center and the police station there going on Broadway. Okay, also you mentioned Godsmack talents to be in the outdoor concerts, as well as Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson already happened, I know that. Also, he said the grand opening of the Ruth Chris Steakhouse will be June 12th in the casino. He also announced that the tribal council has instituted a 4-day, 10-hour work week for its departments other than gaming from May 22nd to September 3rd. And the hours will be 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Coming from Union Township, Mark said that McDonald Park, which is right out here by us, where the BOC Park is and all that, will add, the Sportplex will add gymnastics, and also building water and sewer for the outdoor fitness center constructed early this summer. There'll be artwork on the wall. He mentioned that the non-motorized pathway will be crossing over Remus Road. Union Township approved the connection from Deerfield Road to 3 Leaves Drive, where CMU will continue. He also mentioned there was a tiny homes group represented by Amanda Blake that met with the township, telling of their plans to target the following demographics: homeless vets, 18-year-old foster kids, and families that have had a patch of bad luck. The length of stay will be 3 months to 3 years. And so I think we'll be finding more about that later. That was the initial contact that the group had with a government. And so I think that there'll be, we might have them come here and also talk to the city. The sustainability group is now called the Mid-Michigan Sustainability Group. So that's all I had right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Marino. A lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, that would bring us down to, we have no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business. Under new business, item A, Commissioner Hutchinson, would you present that, please?
Sure. Consider approving the agreement between JBS Contracting Incorporated and the Isabel County in the amount of $466,549 for the Commission on Aging Pavilion and Recreation Project and authorize the board chair to sign.
So we keep learning. Oh, this item looks familiar to you because it was on a recent agenda, but if you remember, the specific action was to approve the proposal from JBS. We had a budget amendment in there, and the motion also approved the budget amendment and authorized chairman to sign it. At the time, Jen promptly the next day called JBS and they said, oh, well, we'll send you the contract. So the attorney said the contract doesn't have to be drafted at the time the board approves it. But what we should have done is we should have authorized the board chair to sign the resulting agreement upon review and approval by the county's attorney, right? So we missed that, so we have to bring it back to you for approval of the actual contract. Kind of a point of order.
Simple enough.
Yes, sir.
Very good. All right, item B, Commissioner Engler.
Yes, consider authorizing the Isabella County Material Recovery Facilities Feasibility Ad Hoc Committee to do what is necessary to implement phase 1 of the feasibility study provided by RRS. As you know, the ad hoc committee doesn't really have the authority to actually make any policy or anything, but there's a lot of things that we need to do that we feel that coming back to the board for everything to do. If you look at this specifically addresses phase 1, which is basically talking to other local unit governments, trying to get contracts. You look at the feasibility study, we had quite a conversation at our ad hoc committee, because if you just look at the feasibility study, just the facility itself, but we decided that we also have to look at the bigger picture because we need more material. And so we did need to look at the solid waste plan. So that's going to be part of the conversation. Trying to get it other communities in that because the feasibility really says we need more product into the facility. It's in your packet, phase 1, basically talking to other people, getting them hooked up. One thing that's not in the phase 1 that we've started doing, which was part of the reason why we brought this up, is looking into funding and applying for grants to do it. So we didn't thought if we could apply for grants or to get agreements, to go ahead and apply for them without having to come to the board and wait, 2-3 weeks on that. So but basically it just kind of gives us a little more movement to try to explore things because we're still kind of trying to find our way and try to figure out what structure is. So I think, like I said, we have no authority to actually implement policy or anything, but it just gives us a little more to explore more things and put more people out there exploring. So
Had a motion in the ad hoc committee to recommend to the board that we approve the entire plan. And then we kind of thought, let's slow down a little and do this in phases. And then the motion came back, well, let's approve phase 1. So that's where we're at.
yes, Chair.
Know that I think you probably spoke to somebody at one of the conferences about looking at a regional facility. Somebody did. And it seems like there's some interest in it, but I think if we're going to start calling in surrounding counties and municipalities, I think we're well positioned in central Michigan with our facility to be that facility. But I think we need to be more cooperative and open because I don't know what's going on in some of the adjoining counties. And they may have their own facilities and we don't want to be seeming to, yeah, you come our way because we need the financial backing to make this go. I think we need to take a look at it as where is the best place to have this regional facility. It's probably going to be our location, but I don't think we want to limit somebody else coming forward saying, hey, we've got this facility too. And
We actually talked to one of the first meeting or when we were discussing it. So, well, maybe it wouldn't be in Isabella County. we got a facility, we got a head start on it, it just makes sense. And with the new, the PA 115s coming in there and the regulations and the money they're doing to make plans, I said, we have a facility, but we don't have, we don't have a dump in Isabella County. There's other things that we need to do as far as, composting and stuff. So we don't have to do everything, but we do have a facility, we have a plan, footprint, a building that we can actually convert into it. So,
Yeah, and with the,
We had another meeting about this, that was the cohort group and all that. And one of the suggestions, which I think could fit in here, is do a survey of the other counties. What's going on there? What do they think? And then we could base some of the things we do on that, and also mention some of the things, like each county is going to have a material, like a solid waste plan, but it's now called MM plan.
we got Jake wants to have some comments. I could see.
On Commissioner Moreno's comment is part of the reason why I decided I needed to step up here. Next Thursday and Friday, my operations manager and myself will be in a conference. It is an accelerator program through Eagle, which is, it's an I2P3. It's actually steered by not only Eagle, but also RRS, funding sources, free consulting. Biggest reason why I chose to do that was the option for the ability for us to, as a county, to be able to garner free consulting out of this. One of the big things that, as far as the whole ad hoc committee, part of the reason why we have an Eagle staff member on that committee is so that we have an understanding of what the surrounding area is. She is also a recycling specialist with Eagle. So she knows what recycling facilities are in the surrounding areas, what ability there is for them particular type of recycling facilities, if there is or is not, their ability to be able to expand. So at this point, Eagle is actually really looking towards Isabella County, supporting us in as any way possibly that they can. They've had a conversation with me continuously over the last 7 or 8 years about wishing to see Isabella County convert to a single stream facility, and also look to be able to make it a regional type of facility as well. So obviously the ad hoc committee needs to be able to continue to work through the Board of Commissioners. But this does, one of the things that as far as the I2P3, we talked about, Commissioner Moreno just mentioned possible surveys and things of that nature. That is some of the things that I will be working through next Thursday and Friday, to be able to send out them surveys to surrounding counties, to gauge their interest in support for us becoming a regional facility. So.
Okay.
more comment, and I did participate in the electronic waste and hazardous waste pickup. That was just about a week or so ago. And it's good to have the conservation district involved too, because those are also waste streams that need to be considered. And I know the conservation district's been working to try and find a permanent facility to collect those. So it just makes it a stronger package throughout. And I appreciate the fact that the district is involved.
On that, Commissioner, we expect that the state of Michigan will call for solid waste, or it's going to be switched from a solid waste plan to a material management plan. We expect January 1st of 24 that they will be calling for new material management plans. That is part of what counties are going to have capacity for. Recycling, composting, solid waste, hazardous waste, household hazardous waste, construction material. All of that has to be diverted out of landfills. So reuse and resell of construction material and things of that nature. So them are all things that counties will have to have capacity for or designate capacity for in a material management plan. So definitely a lot on the horizon for that portion of it, but you know, it is something that we look forward to working with as many partners as we can, conservation district or anywhere else that we can to be able to help support and do everything that we possibly can to help Isabella County residents.
Thank you. Okay. So tonight we'll consider going forward with phase one of that. So exciting times. Up next is general public comment.
Hi, Connie Lee Bills, Union Township. I just wanted to expand on Commissioner Moreno's notes on the intergovernmental. We approved that fitness outdoor fitness facility last year, and then we just at the last board meeting, we had 2 submissions for the artwork that's going to have the mural on there. And I think that we picked one that was really wonderful. It's got a sacred turtle and swan from the tribe, and also some of the sacred foods and everything. And so all that's going to be on that beautiful wall. But what I wanted to mention too was that this facility is handicap accessible. You can ride your wheelchair up to the equipment and use it. I don't know if I mentioned that before, so I just wanted to mention it. So that's all I had.
Nice. Thank you. Anyone else for general public comment? Announcements, commissioners, any announcements? And I have a couple. I'm going to wait till the regular session. So with that, we will consider entering into a closed session under section 8H of the Open Meetings Act and consider material exempt from disclosure under state or federal statute. If there is a motion.
I move to consider entering into closed session under section 8H of the Open Meetings Act to consider material exempt from disclosure under state and federal statute.
Reno.
Supported. Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Marino. Commissioner Sweeney.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
Commissioner Embry,
Yes.
Commissioner Jalazinski.
Yes.
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 7 ayes, 0 nays, Mr. Commissioner. Motion passed.
Thank you.
Turn off our mics now.
Should we turn our mic?